The quiet air of a lot was raining when Keanu walked through the back gate of the community center. No cameras, no red carpets, no assistants around him. Just one man, wearing a worn-out black hoodie and jeans, holding a small duffel bag. The sky was gray, the air smelled like wet pavement and silence, and no one knew he was coming. Inside, kids were yelling, running, and chasing each other across the gym floor. Volunteers moved between folding tables and plastic chairs, stacking boxes of donated clothes, food, and school supplies. It was chaos, but it was good chaos. The kind that came from trying to make things better, even when resources were low. And patience was running thin. Keanu stood by the side door for a while, unnoticed. He didn't interrupt. He didn't clear his throat. He just watched. His eyes scanned the room not with judgment, but with something deeper, something that held both pain and peace. Like a man who had seen the world in all its beauty and all its brokenness, and chose to stay kind anyway. Finally, a teenage girl named Maya noticed him. She was wearing a red volunteer vest that hung too big on her small frame. Her eyes met his, and she paused. It took her a second to realize who he was. "Are you?" She started, unsure. Keanu gave a soft smile and nodded. "Hi. I'm just here to help." Maya blinked. "You mean ... volunteer help?" Keanu nodded. Again, and gently lifted the duffel bag. "I brought some stuff. Thought maybe someone could use it." Maya didn't scream. She didn't run for her phone. She just looked at him, really looked. And then she smiled back. It was small, shy, and genuine. "We could use a lot of help, actually." For the first few hours, Keanu didn't talk much. He unpacked his bag quietly. There were brand new jackets, socks, notebooks, and even packs of colored pencils. He folded every item with care before placing them on the donation table. No one asked him for a photo. No one dared. His presence somehow made people respect the moment, not exploit it. Then someone knocked over a full crate of water bottles. They rolled everywhere. Kids laughed, volunteers groaned, and without missing a beat, Keanu knelt and started picking them up. One by one, an older woman, Miss Evelyn, who had been working at the center for over 30 years, leaned over to Maya and whispered, "Who is that man?" Maya grinned. "That's Keanu Reeves." Miss Evelyn squinted. "The actor." Maya nodded. Miss Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "What's he doing down here on a Tuesday afternoon?" Maya's answer was simple: being human. But the real story, the one no one saw coming, hadn't started yet. That night, when most of the volunteers had left, a fight broke out in the back parking lot. A boy named Jeremiah, 16, angry fists clenched, yelling at another boy over a stolen phone. Things escalated fast. No adults around. No security. But before anyone could throw a punch, Keanu stepped between them. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't act like a celebrity. Just looked Jeremiah in the eye and said, "This isn't strength. This is pain trying to wear a mask." The boys froze. Jeremiah stared at him, breathing heavy. "You don't know what it's like." Keanu nodded. "You're right. I don't know your pain, but I know what it feels like to want to fight the world because you think no one sees you. And I know that the strongest thing you can do, stop before you break something that can't be fixed." Jeremiah didn't say anything. He just dropped his arms and walked away. The next morning, word spread that Keanu had been there. The local paper tried to write a headline. A few reporters came to the center, but Keanu was already gone. No one knew where he stayed. No one got a quote. There were no pictures. But something had changed Miss Evelyn, who had worked there all her life, told the staff, "This place has had donations before. Even celebrities before, but no one's ever shown up just to listen, just to be part of the hard work quietly." Over the next weeks, Keanu returned, always without warning. He cleaned storage rooms, helped fix the leaky roof, ate lunch with the kids, and even stayed after hours when a young volunteer's car broke down. People started calling him the quiet helper, the man who didn't need applause. But what no one knew, what not even Maya could guess, was that Keanu had a reason for being there, a deeply personal one, not for a role. Not for a documentary, not for attention, but because of a letter. A letter that arrived in his mail 6 months ago, written in blue ink, folded 3 times, signed only with a first name, and that letter was about to change everything. The letter he never forget. Maya found the letter by accident. It was early morning, 2 weeks after Keanu first arrived at the center. She had come in early to mop the floors before the kids arrived. The gym was quiet, filled only with the sound of her footsteps and the soft hum of the old vending machine. As she opened the broom closet, something slipped from behind a stack of bottled water. It was a white envelope, worn and slightly crumpled. There was no name on the front, just a small drawing of a heart and a single word written in soft, careful handwriting. "Thank you." Maya picked it up and opened it gently. The paper inside was delicate, written in blue ink. The writing was neat but uneven, like someone had poured their whole heart into each word. And as her eyes moved down the page, she felt a chill run through her. It wasn't just a thank you letter. It was a memory, a confession, a cry for help wrapped in grace. "Dear Keanu, you won't remember me. I was just a kid sitting on the floor of a hospital hallway, scared out of my mind. My brother had just died. I didn't know what to do. Everyone walked past me, doctors, nurses, strangers, except you. You sat beside me, said nothing, just sat there. For an hour, no cameras, no one noticed. But I did. You didn't try to fix anything. You didn't say it would be okay. You just let me cry, and then you gave me your hoodie. Said when the world feels too cold, wear this, still have it. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted you to know. You saved a piece of me that day. I volunteer now at a center that helps kids. Your kindness stayed with me, and now I want to pass it on. If you ever want to visit, I'd love to have you." Signed, Leah stared at the letter, heart pounding. It wasn't hers to read, but it was too late now. And suddenly, everything made sense. It's Keanu's silence, his presence, the way he didn't treat this like a performance. He wasn't there because someone asked him. He was there because he had once made a quiet promise, not with words, but with actions. That same day, Keanu returned, not through the front, but from the side door again, as if avoiding attention. Was a habit more than a choice? He wore the same hoodie, older now, almost threadbare, as if he wanted to remind himself why he came. Maya didn't tell him about the letter. Not yet. Instead, she just handed him a broom and smiled. "We're short on hands today," Keanu smiled back. "Then let's fix that." But something was different that day. Air carried a quiet tension. Later, during lunch, Maya sat beside him on the back steps of the building. Kids laughed in the distance. Keanu was eating a sandwich. Quietly, like always. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said softly. Keanu looked at her, nodding. "Do you ever wonder why people think kindness is something rare?" He paused, chewing slowly, then replied, "Because the loudest things in the world usually aren't kind. People forget quiet things, the soft voices, the small gestures, but those are the ones that last." Maya looked down at her shoes. "Did you know? Someone here kept a letter for you?" It was hidden, or maybe by mistake. Keanu's expression changed just slightly. His eyes grew distant. "From a girl named Leah?" Maya asked. Keanu gently set his sandwich down. "I got her letter months ago, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't even know where to find her. The address wasn't complete. But I remembered the center name. ... So I just showed up. Figured if she was here, I'd eventually feel it." Maya nodded. "I think you already have." He turned his head toward the parking lot, watching kids play. "I don't know if I helped her back then. I didn't know what to say. I still don't." Maya smiled. "You didn't need to. You just showed up. Sometimes that's enough." Keanu closed his eyes. And for a moment, he looked like a man remembering something he had tried to forget. But peace never stays for long. That evening, something unexpected happened. 2 men in suits arrived at the center. They asked for Keanu by name, said they were from the industry. Their tone was polite, but their presence was sharp. Cold Maya watched from across the hall as they spoke to him quietly, trying to convince him to leave. "You're wasting time here," one of them said. "This isn't good for your image. You're not a normal guy." People expect you to be larger than life. Keanu didn't raise his voice, didn't argue. He just said, maybe that's the problem. Maya saw it all, and she felt something rise in her. A fire. After the men left, Keanu stood by the window in silence. Maya walked up to him, fists clenched. "Why do they want you to stop helping?" she asked. "Because kindness without cameras doesn't make money," he said softly. "Are you going to leave?" Her voice trembled. Keanu shook his head. "Not until I do what I came to do." And then, for the first time, he asked something. "Do you know where Leah is now?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "She stopped coming about a year ago. I have her number. She still lives nearby." Keanu exhaled. "Would you take me to her?" That night, as the sun set behind the city, Maya drove Keanu through quiet streets. No one knew. No headlines followed. It's just two people chasing a memory, a promise. A healing moment waiting in the shadows of the past. They reached a small apartment complex. Humble, cracked paint. It's the kind of place where dreams were still fighting. To survive, Keanu stood at the door for a long time before knocking. When Leah opened it, her eyes widened. She didn't scream. She didn't fall apart. She just whispered, "You came." Keanu nodded. "I'm sorry it took me so long." Tears filled her eyes. "You came when it mattered." They stood there in silence. Two souls connected by pain, time, and one moment of kindness that refused to fade. Maya stepped back and watched from the curb. Something inside her changed forever. That night, and as they talked behind that small apartment door, a ripple began, a quiet one, but powerful. The kind of ripple that would soon reach more people than any camera ever could. What Leah never told anyone sighed Leah's apartment. The air was quiet and still. The walls were bare, except for a single shelf lined with old books and a picture frame turned face down. The lights were soft, yellow, and a kettle hissed gently. On the stove, Keanu stood in the middle of the room, unsure where to sit. Leah motioned to the old couch, then disappeared into the kitchen for 2 mugs of tea. She didn't ask what kind he liked. She just brought the one she always made for herself when things got too heavy, chamomile with a drop of honey. They sat in silence for a while, and it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that holds meaning. It's the kind that doesn't. Leah finally spoke. "I didn't think you'd come," she said softly, staring at her tea. Keanu looked down at his hands. "I didn't know if I should, but you did." He nodded. "You remember that day?"
Yes.
She asked. "Every part of it," he said. "I was at the hospital for someone else. I saw you sitting there, knees pulled up to your chest, eyes empty." Leah swallowed. "He was my older brother. Michael. Car crash. He was 17. Keanu didn't interrupt. "We were just kids. I was 13. We fought that morning. I told him I hated him, and then never came home." Her voice cracked. "I thought it was my fault." Keanu said quietly it wasn't. She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "I know that now, but it took years. And you. You gave me a moment of stillness, something real, when everything else was loud and falling apart." She reached under the couch cushion and pulled out something wrapped in plastic. Carefully, she placed it in his hands. It was his old black hoodie. It's the one he had given her that day. It was faded, the sleeves torn at the cuffs, but still warm somehow, still whole. "I kept it," she whispered. "It got me through so many nights." Keanu held it like it was something sacred. "And maybe it was. I thought maybe you'd want it back," Leah added. Keanu smiled faintly. "No, it belongs to you now. Always did." But then her face changed. Her hands began to tremble. Her eyes filled with something deeper than sadness. Fear. "There's something else," she said. "Something I've never told anyone." Keanu listened closely. "After you left that day, I stopped talking. For months. I couldn't speak. Not to my mom. Not to the counselors, no one. I would go to the community center sometimes, just to sit in the corner and watch. And one day, a man showed up there. A tall, well-dressed. He said he was starting a program to help kids. Said he wanted to sponsor me." Keanu leaned in, concerned. "His name was Elliot Dorn. He gave me food, books, clothes. I trusted him. And then one day he said I owed him. Her hands clenched. Tightly single quotes, his eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something stronger. Protectiveness. What did he do? He asked softly. Leah shook her head. Nothing. Not the way you might think. But he controlled me. Made me feel like I didn't deserve kindness unless I paid for it in obedience. He used words. Threats. Made me believe I was broken. A tear slipped down her cheek. I got out eventually. But he's still out there, running fake foundations. Preying on kids who don't know any better. Keanu sat still for a long moment. Then he asked, "Can I do something?" Leah looked surprised. "What can you do?" Keanu didn't smile. Simply said, "I can listen. I can believe you. And I can help make sure he never does that again. But it's not public. It's no proof." "You're the proof," he said. "Your story matters." Leah stared at him, heart pounding. "But if you speak out, people might turn on you, accuse you of making it up. Say you're chasing attention." Keanu shook his head. "I've never chased attention. If they turn on me for standing beside someone who needed a voice, then they were never listening in the first place." Leah covered her mouth with her hand. Emotion crashed over her. She had never felt that safe in years. Meanwhile, back at the community center, Maya was helping a new boy register for classes when 2 police cars rolled quietly into the parking lot. She froze, then ran outside. "Is everything okay?" asked, eyes wide. The officer at the front stepped out and spoke calmly. "We're looking into someone who's been flagged in multiple reports. A man named Elliot Dorn. We received a tip, anonymously." Maya's eyes widened. "Was it from Keanu?" The officer didn't answer, just nodded once respectfully in. The days that followed, everything changed. Keanu didn't disappear, but he didn't make speeches either. Instead, he helped rebuild a new wing of the community center, one focused on mental health, trauma recovery, and youth mentorship. He funded it quietly, through a foundation he created in someone else's name, the Michael Initiative. When Leah saw the sign unveiled, her hands flew to her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You named it after my brother." Keanu nodded. "He saved you. You're saving others." It felt right. News outlets eventually found out. They tried to cover it with headlines like "Keanu's secret project revealed" and "movie star turns philanthropist." But the truth was simpler. Deeper, Keanu had done all of it quietly, not to be seen, but because it needed to be done. And one night, as the building lights dimmed and the volunteers said goodbye, Maya looked up at him and asked, "How do you always know what's needed?" Keanu replied, "I don't, but I know what it feels. Like when someone stays, when they don't run. So now I stay." But there was still one more story to unfold. One more unexpected twist waiting, because while Elliot Dorn had vanished after the tip, a letter arrived at the center the next week. It was addressed to Keanu, in black ink. No return address. Inside was a single line. "You think you know who you're protecting, but you don't know the full truth." The shadow he didn't see, Keanu, sat alone in the center's new library room, staring at the letter outside. The evening was fading into a soft orange dusk. The sky painted the windows with gentle light, but inside the air felt colder. He held the paper between his fingers, reading the words again and again. "You think you know who you're protecting, but you don't know the full truth." There was no name, no address, no way to trace where it came from, but it felt deliberate. The ink was clean, the handwriting calm. It wasn't a threat. It was something more dangerous. Quiet warning. Keanu didn't say anything to Maya or Leah, not yet. He didn't want to worry them. But something deep in his gut told him this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, he drove to a place he hadn't visited in years. It was a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city. Tall trees lined the streets. The houses were old, full of stories no one talked about. He parked outside a brown brick building with ivy crawling up the side. A man opened the door. Tall, thin, gray hair, tired eyes. "Keanu?" he said in disbelief. "Hey, Thomas," Keanu replied. They hadn't spoken in nearly a decade. Thomas Morgan was a retired investigator. They had crossed paths during a charity case long ago, when a missing girl's story collided with one of Keanu's projects. Thomas had been the one to quietly track the truth, while Keanu funded the search behind the scenes. "You showing up means something's wrong," Thomas said, stepping aside. Inside, the house was filled with books, maps, and newspaper clippings. Pinned to the walls, old cases, unsolved patterns, forgotten victims. Keanu handed him the letter. Thomas read it once. "Then again, you think it's from Dorn?" he asked. Keanu shook his head. "I don't know, but it doesn't feel like him. It feels like... someone else. Someone close to the story." Keanu nodded. Thomas leaned back in his chair. "I've kept tabs on Elliot over the years. Slippery guy. Keeps changing names, charities, causes. Never stays in one place for long. We almost caught him twice. Almost. He has help. Someone with reach. Someone who makes things disappear." Keanu stared at the letter again. Maybe this isn't just about Leah. And he was right. Meanwhile, back at the center, Maya noticed something strange. A new volunteer had joined the team. Friendly, helpful, always offering to take the night shift. His name was Devin. Said he had moved from another city and wanted to give back. But something about him didn't sit right with her, he asked. Too many questions about Keanu, about Leah, about the donation records. Always with a smile. One evening, she stayed late to double-check inventory. As she walked past the office, she saw Devin inside, typing fast on the center's computer. The screen glowed with names, addresses, and donation logs. Maya didn't say anything. She quietly stepped back, pulled out her phone, and snapped a photo of the screen. The next morning, she told Keanu. He didn't react with panic. He just nodded slowly. "Thank you for trusting your gut." Maya whispered, "You think he's working with Dorn? Maybe," Keanu said. "Or maybe he's working for someone bigger." Keanu called Thomas that night, sent him the photo, and within 24 hours, Thomas called back. "The name Devin Murray is fake," he said. "But that face? We've seen him before. Was listed as a consultant for one of Elliot's charities 3 years ago. He vanished right after a scandal hit. Never charged, name wiped." "What now?" Keanu asked. "We catch him?" Thomas replied, but quietly. A plan was made. That weekend, the center hosted a small fundraising event. Local families came. The kids performed a small play. And volunteers shared stories about how the center had changed their lives. Keanu gave a short, heartfelt speech. No cameras. Just honesty. Devin was there, smiling, clapping, shaking hands. But he didn't know that Thomas was watching from the back of the room. And he didn't know that 2 off-duty officers were stationed near the exits. After the event, Devin tried to leave early. He didn't make it past the side gate. When questioned, he gave fake names, fake stories. But the photo Maya took combined. With the charity records Thomas dug up, told the real story. He wasn't just gathering information, he was leaking it. Someone had paid him to monitor Keanu, to watch what he was doing, who he was helping, and who he was protecting. And then, final piece dropped. On Devin's phone, investigators found several messages encrypted, but one stood out. It had been sent 3 days before his arrest. She doesn't remember the whole story, but he does. And when it surfaces, it'll destroy everything. Keanu sat across from Leah the next day. He handed her a folder with everything. They'd found names, timelines, connections between Elliot Dorn and a larger network that had operated in plain sight for years. Leah stared at the papers. Racing. How deep does this go? Deeper than we thought, Keanu said. And the message about me? What does it mean? Hesitated, then said gently. They're afraid of your truth. It means it's powerful. Leah leaned back, tears in her eyes. What if they're right? What if there's something I forgot? Something that could hurt others? Keanu shook his head. You don't need to remember everything for your truth to matter. Your voice is enough. Your courage is enough. But still, a question lingered in both their minds. Who else had been hurt? How many more letters had been written but never sent? That week, Keanu made a decision. He bought an old radio station building on the edge of the city. He called it the Quiet Room, a place where survivors could come, record their stories anonymously, and let their voices be heard without fear. No cameras, no names, just truth. And people came, first in ones, then in dozens. Stories poured in. Stories of being failed, being silenced, being forgotten. And in the center of it all, Keanu sat in a booth, wearing headphones, listening, never interrupting. Never judging, just listening. And behind every story was the echo of something powerful. Someone once showed me kindness. Now, I'm passing it on. But the ripple wasn't done yet, because one night, after closing up the studio, Keanu found another envelope slipped under the door. No stamp, no address. Inside was a single photo. It showed a much younger Leah standing beside Elliot Dorn, and behind them, barely visible in the shadows, was someone else, someone Keanu recognized, someone from his past. The face from the past. Keanu stared at the photo for a long time. The edges were faded, and the colors had started to turn yellow. But the image was clear enough. There was Leah, older than 12, standing next to Elliot Dorn, smiling nervously. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder. And behind them was a man half hidden in the background. Leaning against a doorframe, Keanu knew that face. It was Andrew Stone. Once. Years ago, Andrew had been part of a film project Keanu supported. Not a big blockbuster, just a small, meaningful documentary about youth shelters. Andrew had been listed as a producer, brought in through a mutual connection. At the time, Keanu had no reason to doubt him. They shook hands, shared coffee, talked about kindness and change. But now that face, half hidden in an old photo, sent a chill down his spine. He remembered something else too, an odd moment on set. A quiet argument Andrew had with one of the teenage interviewees. Nothing loud, nothing violent. But the boy had refused to return the next day, said he didn't feel safe. Keanu had asked Andrew about it, but Andrew waved it off. A teeds? Just shy, he'd said. But now, that didn't feel right. He needed answers. And not just for himself. The next morning, Keanu met with Thomas again. He handed over the photo and told him everything. Thomas frowned. Andrew Stone. That name hasn't come up in years. He went quiet after that documentary. Keanu nodded. But if he was connected to Dorn, and if Leah was there that day, then this isn't just about charity fraud. This is something deeper. We'll dig, Thomas said, but carefully. Like this, they're good at hiding. Later that day, Keanu returned to the quiet room. Didn't mention the photo to Leah. Not yet. She was recording her third story that weekich. One stronger, braver, more honest. The center had started receiving letters from strangers who listened to her recordings and found courage to speak their own truths. Maya. I turned those anonymous stories into a small book. She titled it Whispers That Never Fade. It was beautiful. But there was one voice missing. Counts he always listened. Until that night. After everyone left, he entered the booth and sat in front of the mic. The red light blinked. The room was silent, and he spoke. I was 24, still new to all of this. Still unsure if fame was something I wanted or something that had just happened to me. He took a breath. I trusted people to easily. Thought if someone spoke about helping kids, they meant it. Thought kindness was a shared language, but not everyone speaks it the same way. His voice stayed calm, but his words trembled. I watched a boy leave a set because he felt unsafe, and I said nothing. I convinced myself it wasn't my place. I didn't know the full story, but deep down I knew. I just wasn't ready to see it. He paused. That boy wrote me a letter. Years later, said he never forgot how no one believed him. How silence hurt more than the lie. I never responded. I didn't know how. Another long pause. But I'm here now. Oh. And I want you to know. I believe you. I believe all of you. The recording stopped. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu let himself cry. Not from guilt, but from release. Meanwhile, Thomas's investigation brought something shocking. Andrew Stone had changed his name. Again, he now went by Jonas Hale. He was running a consulting firm for nonprofits and worse. He had recently been hired by a major children's charity to advise on youth engagement. He was back in the system, and no one knew. Keanu took the news hard. "How many more kids?" he whispered. "We can't prove anything yet," Thomas said. "No charges, just patterns." Keanu stood and said, "Then we break the pattern." They arranged a meeting, an industry event. Nothing big, just a conference panel where Jonas Hale would be speaking. Keanu signed up as a surprise guest speaker under a different topic. The organizers were thrilled. They didn't know the real reason he was coming. When Keanu walked on stage, the room went silent. The panel was halfway through. Jonas, still charming, still well-dressed, froze when he saw him. Keanu walked up to the microphone and said calmly, "Before we speak about progress, we need to speak about truth." Jonas shifted in his seat. Keanu turned to face the audience. "A long time ago, I ignored something I should have questioned. A boy's fear, a girl's silence. I have learned since then that silence is a choice, and today I choose not to be silent." He turned to Jonas. "Do you remember Leah?" Jonas didn't answer. "She does," Keanu said, "and so do others." The air in the room tightened. Keanu continued, "We're gathering testimonies, voices, stories that were once hidden. The truth always finds its way through, even if it starts as a whisper." Jonas stood up. "This is not the place." But before he could finish, a woman in the back of the room stood and said, "I remember you too." Then another voice, "So do I." Within seconds, 3 more people stood. Jonas's eyes darted around the room. Keanu didn't smile. He just stepped aside. The truth didn't need his spotlight. It had its own light now. In the days that followed, media reports exploded. Survivors came forward. Investigations were reopened. The charity that hired Jonas dropped him immediately, and yet, through it all, Keanu stayed quiet. He refused interviews. He declined awards. He simply returned to the center. To Maya, to Leah, to the quiet room. And one evening, Leah brought him something small, a key. "What's this?" Keanu asked. She smiled. "We're building a second quiet room across the city for kids who can't travel far. It's yours to open." He held the key tightly. "You know," Leah said softly, "you never raised your voice. Not once. But somehow, ... you made the whole world stop and listen." Keanu looked at her, eyes soft. "Because kindness doesn't shout. It shows up again and again." But the story wasn't over yet, because while Jonas vanished again, leaving behind files, contacts, and unanswered questions, one more envelope arrived. It was smaller. No photo this time, just a single line. "I told you they'd come for her. But you forgot they might come for you too." The kindness that stood unshaken. Final letter arrived without noise. No courier. No return address. It was left on Keanu's chair in the quiet room, just sitting there waiting. The message inside was short, sharp, and clear. "I told you they'd come for her. But you forgot they might come for you too." Keanu held the paper, his fingers still and steady. He had faced storms before: loss, betrayal, heartbreak. But this felt different. This wasn't a warning. It was a promise. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Then he folded the note, slipped it into his coat pocket, and walked back out into the main room, where Leah was helping a little girl record her first story, where Maya was sorting new donations, where the laughter of children echoed like music. The threat meant nothing in here. Not because it wasn't real, but because the love in this place was stronger. But still, Keanu knew he had to act. Not in fear, but in courage. He met with Thomas that evening in a small, quiet diner just outside the city. Thomas spread files across the booth table, timelines, shell companies, messages pulled from encrypted phones. The last letter, Thomas said, tapping a name circled in red ink, was sent by someone named Marlon Birch. "He's not just a bystander. It's the one who's been cleaning up behind Dorn and Jonas for years. Why now? Keanu asked. Because you're getting too close, Thomas replied. You've shaken the foundation. They're not afraid of exposure, they're afraid of losing control. Keanu nodded. So what do we do? You don't do anything? Not an option. Thomas leaned in. They'll try to ruin your name, dig into your past, twist your words. If you keep speaking, they'll come after everything you love. Keanu stared out the window. The world outside kept moving. Cars passed, lights blinked, people laughed. But inside, a quiet war was unfolding. He turned back to Thomas and said, Then let them come. Because he wasn't the same man he used to be. He had found something worth protecting. Asterisk, asterisk, the next week. A smear campaign hit the internet. A video heavily edited, made to look like Keanu had once supported an organization tied to criminal activity. Anonymous accounts posted photos out of context. Articles popped up questioning his motives, calling the quiet room a publicity trap. Maya came running into the office, phone in hand. They're trying to destroy you, she whispered. Leah stood behind her, pale and shaking. So sorry, this is my fault. No, Keanu said calmly. It's not, and this isn't the end. He didn't release a statement. He didn't post a video defending himself. Instead, he invited every journalist who had ever written about him, good or bad, to the center. And then he let the kids speak, not rehearsed, not edited, just truth. A girl named Jamie stood on the stage and said, I used to believe no one cared, until a man handed me a backpack and asked me how school was going. That man was Keanu. A boy named Malik said, I used to fight everyone. Now I teach the little ones how to draw. Leah walked up, voice shaking but strong. He never asked. For thanks, he just kept showing up. That's who he is. Finally, Maya spoke. He didn't just change this place. He changed all of us. The next day, the lies fell apart. The edited video was proven fake. The anonymous accounts disappeared. And Marlon Birch. He was arrested, found trying to cross the border with a suitcase full of hard drives and forged passports. Thomas called. Keanu that night, it's over. Keanu didn't smile. He just said, no, it's just beginning. Asterisk, asterisk, months passed. The quiet room expanded to 4 new cities. Survivors kept coming. It's not because of fame, not because of any celebrity, but because they felt safe. They felt heard. Keanu still showed up every week, mopped floors, sat beside strangers, and listened. One afternoon, Maya found him in the back, fixing a broken door hinge. You're a movie star, she said, laughing. You know that, right? He looked up at her with a soft grin. Not today. What? Are you today, then? He thought for a second. I'm someone who didn't walk away. Asterisk, asterisk, on the first anniversary of the quiet room, they held a gathering. Nothing fancy. Just candles, music, and stories. Leah stood at the microphone and said, I used to think I was broken. But then I met someone who reminded me that silence doesn't mean weakness. It just means you're waiting to be heard. She turned to Keanu. He heard me, and now I hear others. The crowd clapped, and Keanu stood there quietly, hands in his pockets. Heart full but humble. Someone whispered from the side, How come no one can say a bad word about him? And the answer came gently, because he never needed to be loud to be strong. He just kept showing up. Asterisk, asterisk, years later, long after the headlines faded. Long after the scandals had turned to dust, a little girl walked into the quiet room with a folded note. She handed it to the front desk, saying, My mom said someone here would understand. It was written in blue ink, folded 3 times, no name at the bottom, just a drawing of a heart. Maya took it, held it close, and smiled through tears. We understand, she whispered, outside. Keanu stood in the sunlight, watching the children play. He didn't wave, didn't pose for pictures, didn't say a word. He just stood there, quiet, steady, unshaken. The kindness he gave had echoed into 1,000 lives, and not a single person could say a bad word, because some stories don't. need to be shouted, they just need to be lived.